Statement made from Ireland. Wow. I think pretty much everything I thought that would happen in that game, it didn't go the way I thought it was. I predicted France to win. I'll put my hands up and say it. I thought that Ireland might miss the experience of Johnny Sexton. How wrong I was. And that is a statement win for Ireland. What a performance, what a result. And I'll say it right now, we don't know what the other teams in the Six Nations are currently going to look like. But if Ireland turn up every week in this year's championship and play like that, at that sort of level and intensity, then I can't see anyone beating them. That's maybe a conversation for further down the line, but make no mistake, they were seriously impressive. Welcome back to the channel. If you're an Irish fan, I'd imagine you're going to be feeling pretty damn happy right now. And so you should. Comment down below, what did you make of the game? What did you make of the performance from Ireland, but also from France as well? Naturally, I'm going to focus on the Irish to start with. But from the French perspective, a fascinating result and performance in particular. So loads for us to get into. If you can like the video and give it a little boost, that'd be much appreciated. And make sure you are subscribed to the channel. But Ireland in this game, they set the tone from minute one. That first half, I know they were only leading by 7 points by the time we got to halftime, but they dominated it. They settled into it really, really quickly. France barely had any possession, any territory whatsoever, and Ireland were just absolutely dominant. And France actually, I thought, looked quite uncomfortable. It looked like they were struggling to get themselves into the game. There was a few mistakes in there, but they couldn't get hold of the ball in areas of the field that they wanted to play, and a lot of that is because of how good Ireland were. And I will mention some individual players, although it's always difficult when you've had a team performance as good as this. But before that, I wanted to speak about the team, because this is an Irish side, and we spoke about the World Cup, didn't we, in the build-up? Would there be a hangover for either of these teams? This is an Ireland team that picked up right where they left off, because they were awesome. And the detail and variation in their game is just so good. And that's where they're so ahead, I think, of a lot of other teams in the world. And I know they didn't win the World Cup, but certainly when I say that, I mean a lot of other teams in this Six Nations. The detail, the continuity, just in attack, the different options, everyone seems to know their role. That's the attack we saw last season and in the build-up to the World Cup. And it looked as good tonight, I think, as it did all of 2023. So that's really exciting from an Irish fan's perspective, and those of you watching this, because it doesn't look like there's been any drop-off whatsoever, despite the departure of Johnny Sexton. The other thing as well, we saw what they can do with ball in hand, and actually, in particular, that first half, there were moments when Ireland are playing like that, they're not making any mistakes, and when they get themselves into, I suppose, the final third, once they're past the 10-metre line in enemy territory, there's times where I was watching it and thinking, I don't know how anyone stops this. Just every phase is quick. They're asking questions of the defence. They're stretching a physical and a good French team, and you just feel it's inevitable that they're going to end up scoring. And then the flip side, I think, of this Irish performance is the continuity of the attack mixed along with loads of the other good stuff we saw. In that, what do we have? Towards the end of the game, driving maul tries, and we saw more of the power game. Their set piece, I know their scrum creaked a little bit, but their line out was excellent. There's just so much to like from this Irish performance. And I suppose when I'm talking about the detail in their game, a good example of that for me is actually the use of James Lowe, which isn't necessarily a new thing, but he's almost their number one kicking option out of hand, with the exception of Gibson Park if he's box kicking. The way in which they work the ball into different areas for James Lowe to be their kicker, because he's got an absolute cannon and he's a left-footed option, is just really, really clever. They're a very well-coached team, and it was a great performance and an absolute joy to watch. I said I'll mention some of the players. Honestly, it's a case of where do you start, and I'll probably won't mention players that you think I should do. Bundy Aki, first of all, there was certainly the pool stages of the World Cup where he was the player of the tournament. I thought he picked up where he left off. Dangerous with ball in hand. Excellent offload for that first try. I think it was the first try, wasn't it, which Gibson Park scored. He was very, very good. The man of the match, Joe McCarthy, a lot of build-up for him, getting the starting place in that second row instead of someone like James Ryan. He was awesome. And that'll be no surprise whatsoever to anyone who's watched him in the URC or Champions Cup this year. But he was excellent. Crowley looked awesome at 10, even though he was charged down early. I thought Gibson Park marshalled it well. I mentioned James Lowe, just everything he brings to that team. I don't know if there's a winger in the world that brings a sort of all-round game that James Lowe does to a team. I know you've got Damien Penaud or Cheslin Colby or other wingers that are excellent try scorers and finishers, and lots of players that do other good stuff. But in terms of James Lowe's, his all-round game and the way he fits into that system, I thought he was absolutely sensational tonight as well. There's probably other players that I'm missing, but just from Ireland, 2 massive thumbs up. But we do need to get on to France, because everything I say about Ireland, in terms of how they settled into the game, in terms of how they didn't look like there was any rust from the World Cup, that they picked up where they left off, is the opposite for France. And to a degree, that is because of what Ireland did. When you don't have any ball, when you're being put under pressure, when a team like Ireland isn't making any mistakes, they stretch you, there's not much that you can do about it. But despite that, they did look off it, I think. And I don't know if that's to do with the World Cup. That might be what people say after this game, that it's a French side that haven't dealt with the disappointment of losing at a home World Cup in the quarterfinal. I don't think we'll know whether that's the case until later on in this championship. I'm not willing to go there just yet. But regardless of what it is, they didn't look entirely there. It took them a long, long time to settle into this game. They looked like they were playing a different style of game, actually, to what we've seen previously. Previous French sides and this French side almost don't play in their own half. They kick it away. And I think it is partly because of what Ireland did. They felt like they had to at times, and that's when mistakes started to come. So there'll be a lot of soul searching for the French. I think the team that is possibly looking at this result and maybe almost most excited by it might be Scotland, who still have to do the job over the next few weeks, but they have a good record against France at home. And they know that they need to try and beat one of these 2 teams if they're genuinely going to compete for a Six Nations. After that performance at Murrayfield, they may well back themselves. That's getting ourselves a few weeks down the line, but that was just a thought that I had when watching the game. So France will have to pick themselves up. I still think you look at this French team, it is a good French team. I don't think they're a bad side overnight. We will see whether this level of performance is an anomaly. My gut instinct is they will be back, they will be better, and I think they will still probably be better than some of the other teams that they're now going to face in the Six Nations. But we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see whether it is a World Cup hangover. I suppose I should mention the Paul Willemse red card. I think it goes to show, actually, how dominant and good Ireland were, that almost the red card doesn't feel like that much of a talking point. First of all, I think it was the correct decision. But Ireland looked so good before that, they were so good after it. They are the story from this match. I think with Paul Willemse, he's lost his head a little bit for the second one, having already been on a yellow card. It is fine margins. Players have to motor around at 100 miles an hour because the gain line and winning that physical dominance is so important. But I think he will look back on that and be a bit disappointed. And then the other thing, I suppose, away from the 2 teams to mention is just the bunker system. First time we've seen it since the World Cup. I thought the explanations from the referee were better than what we saw at times in the World Cup. It still feels a little anonymous of someone looking at it in the background who we don't hear from, watching on TV, or the fans in the stadium. I still think that is an issue with it. And also, I don't understand why he needed to explain that it would have been a red card even though Willemse had already been sent off. That bit at the start of the second half where he was explaining to Aldry just before they kicked off, I wasn't quite sure why he needed to explain that. Maybe someone knows. I don't know. If so, put it in the comment section. But yeah, overall, what's the takeaway from this video? I was wrong, essentially. Statement from Ireland, huge win. Beating France in France is no easy task. They will now be the heavy favourites. And as I say, they play like that. Unless an England, Scotland, or Wales or Italy have improved drastically since we saw them last year, then I think Ireland go on and win the Six Nations and possibly do a Grand Slam. No team has done back-to-back Grand Slams in the Six Nations era. It is not easy. The last team to do it was France when it was still the Five Nations. That is a very, very real possibility now for this Ireland team. And let's see, it's a long way to go. The Six Nations has a funny habit of writing different narratives. but they were very, very good tonight. I'll leave my thoughts there. I look forward to reading your comments. Do let me know what you made of it. Of both teams as well, with France, what do you think in terms of the reason for that French performance? A lot of it to do with Ireland, but they're going to have to look at themselves internally as well, because that is not to the standard I think that they will view as being acceptable. And I think Sean Edwards, as their defence coach, is going to be fuming with some of what he saw in that game. So soul searching for the French. Ireland now in the box seat for this championship. I look forward to reading your comments. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll see you in the next one.